Maybe planting a seed, a quick announcement. When we finish this Gongchik overview, that's what I'll call it, introduction and overview, which is one blessing that came out of pandemic. When we finish this, I hope that you will not, put this book, aside and never look at it. Maybe put it aside for a little bit, yes. But go back to this book. There's so much more in here. Maybe next time, instead of reading statement by statement, you will read, just open the book, to some page. Every day, just open. And whatever that page is, that statement, whatever Vajra statement is there, you read that Vajra statement, read the commentary, and read Sobish's notes. So then every day, if you make a point to read one Vajra statement by just turning the page, sort of see it as, today, which Vajra statement you can pray to the lineage masters, to Gyalpa Rinpoche, to Buddha Shakyamuni. There's no separation, We talk as if, this one's here, this one's here, this one's here. But neither are we talking like, oh, they are all like the one God. We're also not talking like that. We're just saying that the essence of what we are supplicating is all the same. So it's not the case that, you supplicate Milarepa and Milarepa says, oh, you're looking at Gongchik? Oh, no, sorry, I cannot help you. Or like, you supplicate, Buddha Shakyamuni, and Buddha Shakyamuni say, oh, you are looking at Gongchik, you're not looking at the Dhammapada. Oh, no, sorry, I cannot help you, no, or, So you supplicate, like you pray to Guru Rinpoche, Dara, Jigten Sumgan, whoever, and say, so today, let one of the Vajra statements provide me guidance, clarity. Then you just open to one page. Then whatever Vajra statement is, that page belongs to, you read the Vajra statement, you read the commentary, and you read those notes. So in this way, I think, we don't like say, oh, I read the Gongchik, and then just Gongchik becomes another topic of information and knowledge. Then it's not very useful. Yeah. So that's one thing. Second thing, to plant the seed, the real seed I was talking about planting is, I'm rather seriously considering that after this book, I want to start a series that is long, but not this way, not like the same every morning, but a series. So I've not figured out the timing yet, like what time of the day, what day of the week, in part because there are other groups somewhat involved. But I would like to start the series on Bodhicharyavatara. Many years ago, I did Bodhicharyavatara. I almost forgot, 15, 20 years ago, I did Bodhicharyavatara. Back when there's no Zoom, Skype was just turning up. And so I think we use Skype, very ancient technology. And even like, called on the phone. Many years ago, I did one series on the Bodhicharyavatara. So I'm considering starting this. As to how frequently, weekly and all that, I don't know. I have to think a little bit about that. As I say, if I am going to be stranded on an island, so to say, and I get to pick 3 books, right? Then this Gongchik book will be one of them. Bodhicharyavatara will be one of them. And then Songs of Milarepa will be the third. These are the 3 books. So anyway, so we'll see. So as a prelude to maybe starting Bodhicharvatara, you saw the upcoming in May, 2 Saturdays in May. Those are the 2 Saturdays in May before I leave for Nepal. The medicine center that has been hosting Khenchen Rinpoche's teachings, Khenchen Rinpoche asked them to reach out to me to see if I would do 2 Saturdays at least for them. Sort of as a follow-up to what Rinpoche recently has been teaching on Wednesdays to mostly a German group, but of course open to other people as well. Maybe some of you have participated every Wednesday, like around this time, a little bit later. So Rinpoche finished, I believe, chapter 8, 7 and 8, I think, during this pandemic. So towards the end, I think Rinpoche told them to get in touch with me. So I said, yes, of course, if Rinpoche asks me to do, of course I'll do. So that is going to be in May. Yeah. So if you are able to join, it's not long, 9 to 11 New York time on the first 2 Saturdays in May. Yeah. Then if those of you who are local here, this end of this month, there is the Sang offering program, Urban Dharma, on Sunday at the French Broad River Park. We're also using that occasion as an excuse to wish me a very old birthday. Feels old, but maybe not that old. My supposed 50th birthday was right at the start of the pandemic, so so maybe on Sunday I said, yeah, after the Sang, everybody bring your own brunch, and we can stare at each other and eat brunch, and call it a birthday celebration. So right now, let me see, local, Judy. Maybe I'll see Judy. I don't know. That's it in this group. Yeah, I think, only Judy. I think May comes to listen to it afterwards. So 2 people. Larry is continuing to attend to his medical needs, and please think of him, dedicate merit and practice to him. So birth, old age, sickness, and death. These are the 4 rivers that feed into this ocean called samsara. Birth, old age, sickness, and death. Immediate cause of death is this and that, right? The more bigger cause of death is birth. Birth is the cause of death. Then even bigger cause of birth and death is, of course, confusions that that power, the fuel that power confuse existence is grasping, of course, or thirst, Krishna in Sanskrit, Krishna, or tanha. That's the insatiable thirst. not technically not yet samsara. So don't think that Buddha is so negative to say that, oh, if you're standing around here, then this must be samsara. No, samsara is a mode of existence. It's a way of existing, which is the way of existing where we are still under the power of confusion. That is samsara. The Buddhist goal is not to put an end to life per se, although a misunderstanding of the Buddhist, what the Buddha taught, can lead to implications that seems to suggest that existence itself is what needs to be annihilated. Because the word for nirvana is literally to annihilate, to snuff out. The metaphor there is the snuffing out of a flame. Put out the flame. Right? And because of that etymology, some Buddhists, and then because of that, non-Buddhists, have this impression that what the Buddha taught is the annihilation of all existence. So this is related to actually the issue that we've been looking at for this last few Vajra statements. Yeah, because there are roots to this misunderstanding, which is the Buddha used negative as in negation, not negative as in positive, good, negative, bad. But Buddha used the language of negation in order to indicate to us what the goal is. See, the Buddha did not start with saying there is happiness and there is a cause of happiness. Yeah. Instead, he started with there is suffering. Why? Because we know what suffering is. But the happiness that comes as a result of ending suffering, we don't know exactly what it is. We only know what that happiness is by way of saying, it's the absence of the suffering that I do know now. Right? So the Buddha started at a starting point that we all can agree on, suffering. So he says, whatever that you experience that is suffering, by definition, you don't want it. And then he says, there is a reason why this suffering exists, which is Trishna, thirst, grasping. And if that is the case, so whenever Buddha talks about causation, Buddha is also talking about cessation. And therefore, suffering can also be done with, finished, gone. It's when we stop creating, when we stop grasping, we stop thirsting, then there is the result of the absence of suffering. So from the beginning, Buddha used a language of negation because, and so why the Buddha didn't start off by saying there is happiness? Because, right, when we're still under the power of confusion, our definition of happiness can be very unreliable. Yeah, so in this very kind of cute, clever, kind of modern book called What Makes You Not a Buddhist by Gongchik APR Rinpoche. Yeah. In one chapter, the first chapter, on suffering, he says, happiness is such an elusive term, such an elusive idea. He says, when you are a child, happiness is playing in a sandpit. When you are a teenager, playing in a sandpit is no longer happiness. running around on the beach, looking at similarly skimpily clad teenagers is your definition of happiness. Then 10 more years later, that itself is not enough as happiness, You have to add career, you have to add money, you have to add recognition. Then he said, before long, happiness is defined as being able to go to toilet, every day. Yeah. I've noticed, my parents and my uncles, when they get together now, all they talk about is, being able to go to toilet, and you can tell, they're so happy. They say, oh, yeah, So, this happiness is so elusive, So the Buddha did not say, oh, you want to be happy? Because then there's no way to answer all those types of happiness, So the Buddha began by saying, you want suffering? Everyone is like, no, I don't want suffering. He said, okay, good. So he stated things by using negation, because that is how it is, But because of that negation, including, right, nirvana, nir is to extinguish, So because of that metaphor, because of that symbolism of calling the final goal as extinction or extinguishing, it's given this impression that at the end of the Buddhist goal is just this absence. Although in many places the Buddha says, no, it's the absence of craving, it's the absence of confusion, it's the absence of afflictive emotions, it's the absence of negative karma, both negative karma as cause and negative karma as result, vipaksha, absence of that. Absence of burning, absence of stress, absence of, he says, nirvana is the absence of all of this. But it has led to certain interpretations where at the Buddha state, it has to be so absent that people go too far. Even absenting compassion, even absenting loving kindness. Now, on earlier stages of the path, we do need to pay attention to how love and compassion, if we don't know how to handle them, they can become, right, a cause of suffering. Even this idea that, if I love all things and all beings equally like myself, even this notion, we have to be very careful. Because if you literally did that, and you did not have the wisdom aspect present, right? Oh, then, what's happening in Myanmar right now? What's happening with coronavirus in Brazil right now? You will feel everything. That's not Buddha's way of talking about compassion. So anywhere someone cuts down a tree, you go, ouch! And so this is the danger of, if you identify with everything as I. So first Buddha taught how to not identify with anything as I. Not I, not I, not I, not I. Even the five aggregates, that is the basis of the arising of I, we have to cultivate a perception and understanding, a relationship, so that even with the psycho, physical constitution of this, we have to see how it's not I, not I, not I, not I. How much more this house is not I. How much more this neighborhood is not I. How much more this country is not I. How much more this continent is not I. How much more this world is not I. How much more this universe is not I. Not I, not me, not mine. That has to be cultivated first. Without that in place to some degree, to then say, this is me, you are me, and you are me, and what happens to you affects me. Oh, if you start off like that, you'll be completely, right? No painkiller can solve your problem. So Buddha did not teach that. So that's why in one of the texts we translated, the play of elephants, and Khenchen Rinpoche taught that text recently. Jigten Sungren says, if you are talking about compassion, if you don't understand that at the root of this compassion that we're talking about is to give up self-grasping. Now we might think, what that means is, you go do everything for others. It's not that. It means cultivate the understanding that it's not I, not me, not mine. That is giving up self-grasping. So to state it differently, it's a way of caring, right, without paining. Yeah, it's a way of caring without paining. It's hard to conceive of that, because we are so used to, like when we care about something, then we experience pain in relation to that something. I can see, myself, for me now, it's my god kids, Oh, I got a taste, I'm not their parents, but I have a taste of what it means to be their parents. Yeah, and I think, oh, what if this happens to them? What if that happens, There is pain. Well, there is dualistic, kind of self-grasping there. And so pain is involved. But the Buddha's way of the compassion that the Buddha taught, doesn't involve pain in this way. To the degree that we find it hard, if you're really honest about it, it's a little hard to understand, how can you care without experiencing pain? But that is what the Buddha says, that it is possible. It's easy for us to have lip service, I think, or at least I don't want to speak for you, I'll speak for myself. I find myself giving lip service to like, oh yes, just compassion without separation of self and other. It's easy to say that, But how is that, experientially true? Oh, kind of hard to understand. Because on this side of confusion, if I'm honest about it, then every time I care about something, someone, I can see the pain that is involved. Now the solution is not to not care about. The solution the Buddha gives is to continue to develop skillful care. And so the wisdom aspect becomes really, really crucial. Really, really crucial. Otherwise, we go around, collecting other people's suffering. And in that case, first, you have not really taken away their suffering. Second, you have created more suffering for yourself. So elsewhere in another teaching, Gilbert Rinpoche says, merely collecting, he didn't say collect, he says merely experiencing suffering is not the spiritual path, he says. But he says the essence of the spiritual path can be explained as the two accumulations. The accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. Merit, as I explained before, one way of thinking about merit is what makes genuine connection, fruitful connection possible. That's one way of looking at merit. In terms of how merit is related to compassion, how merit is related to helping others. Then merit makes connection possible. It's through merit that our connection to others are warm, genuine, mutually transformative, mutually helpful. Without merit, everywhere we go, we don't get along with people. But merit itself needs to also be present together with wisdom. Otherwise, connecting with others, even if it is good connection, can turn into fuel for suffering. That's the pain part. So we simultaneously accumulate merit and wisdom. With this merit and wisdom going hand in hand, accumulated together, developed together, increasing together, and then the Buddha state, when this is completely fulfilled, perfected, brought to completion, then Gilbert Rinpoche here, in these Vajra statements, so far I would say all these statements is to counteract the over-negating tendencies that leads to kind of a nihilistic view of what Buddhahood is. Yeah. So now, statement 8. The statement itself is a little kind of awkward. Maybe it's a translation issue. I'm not saying Sobish translated wrong, but just not at all. But more that, certain expressions, it's not easy to translate into English. So literally the translation of this statement is mind, in this case Buddha's mind, alone arises, reaching as far as the view of eternalists and nihilists. So if you just read this statement, you're like, well, what does that mean? The mind alone arises. And then you want to say, alone, the mind alone as opposed to the mind and the body? No, that's not why the word alone is doing there. The role of alone there is not to say, it's only the Buddha's mind, not the Buddha's body, not the Buddha's speech, not the Buddha's qualities, not the Buddha's activities. No. That's not what the alone is doing here, okay? Here alone, is, well, let's keep going first. So just to say, that's not what the alone is doing here. So the Buddha's mind alone, this is actually, so then the alone here, what it's saying is like, all other minds don't have this capacity. Yeah, you can understand the alone here this way. Yeah. So here arises when does this arise? As in, at the state of Buddha, what arises, right? What is then now fully functional without obstruction, without obstacles, is this Buddha mind that even goes as far as to the view of eternalists and nihilists. Eternalists and nihilists are what constantly in the Buddhist teachings are criticized as extreme views. Yeah, eternalists are those that say, we are already Buddhas, so even using Buddhist language, or we are already divine, and nothing that we do can affect that. Those are eternalists. Or people who say a variation of that is like, everything is already fated. So there were spiritual traditions during the Buddha's time that said, everything is already predetermined. Each soul, so they say, every one of us is a soul, and each soul has to go through 99,000 lifetimes. So then, all we need to do is to minimize pain during these 99 million lifetimes, and let the 99 million lifetimes take its full course, and at the end of that, ta-da, we'll be freed. There were traditions that say that. So that's an example of eternalists. Nihilists are those who say, it doesn't matter what you do, because life ends now. After this life, that's it. So in both cases, whether it's eternalist or nihilist, basically the main problem from the Buddhist perspective is they deny the power and meaning of action. No point doing anything because it's already determined. No point doing anything because doing anything doesn't help in anything. They are both positions that come from an eternalist position or a nihilist position. It renders karma irrelevant, and it renders karma meaningless. Buddha says, no, But this Vajra statement is saying something very interesting. What is it saying? The gist is it's saying that, and the commentary makes clear to this point, is that the mind of a Buddha is so amazing that Buddhas can even teach eternalist and nihilist ideas to whoever needs to be taught that in order to guide them towards liberation. So here, this eternalist and nihilist is used to indicate a very extreme situation, because normally we say the Buddha's teachings is beyond the faults of the eternalists and the nihilists. The statement is saying, because the Buddha mind is an all-knowing mind, so then part of its all-knowingness has to include knowing about the eternalist and the nihilist way. And not only that, at the state of Buddha, why do Buddhists, what are Buddhists going to do with the eternalist and nihilist ideas? They now can even use these ideas to guide beings to liberation. In other words, right, Buddhists can see that if some beings right now can improve their karma, so to say, by having an eternalist type of view, then Buddhists will use that. Not stop there, but will temporarily use that. So some examples would be, those who like to think, oh, freedom, liberation is like a heaven. Where at all times, all the goodies you want, is always available. Yeah. So in some traditions, it says you'll be united with your family forever when you go to this heaven. Then in some traditions it says you can have all the virgins you ever want to have, Then in our, even Buddhists, we have like Amitabha, Pure Land, oh, you can hear the Buddha teach forever. So these are sort of, in a way, eternalist views, right? Buddha's, but here what it's saying is like Buddha will know how to use these ideas to guide us along the path. So this next few statements, actually, if you understand them, the implications, it actually gives a very kind of like expansive view of all the differences that the different spiritual traditions teach and all that. This next few statements, basically the gist of these next few statements is the perfected mind, the Buddha mind, the mind in its natural state where it has all the qualities and are no longer under the power of the faults. This mind is so amazing that it can, when it's present, it can turn all situations and conditions to become conducive to the liberation of others. So let's look at the commentary. Because the perfect Buddha obtained the inexhaustible wheel of ornaments, there are as many means of training as there are sentient beings' thoughts and different mental engagements. So the inexhaustible wheel of ornaments is talking about the Buddha qualities. So because Buddhas have Buddha qualities, these qualities are basically the means of training other beings. So in the Samantabhadra's aspiration prayers, right, it says the extent of beings' karma and confusion is inexhaustible. May my bodhisattva activities also be inexhaustible. Right? It says something like that. And so here it says, Buddhas, wheel of ornaments, the Buddha qualities, which are theirs, for no other reason than to be used as ways of guiding beings out of confusion and suffering. Moreover, these occur to such an extent due to the Buddha's vast previous aspirations. So the bodhisattvas on the bhumis keep training and keep training and keep training. Again, to train them with the views of the non-Buddhist, eternalists, and nihilists, So saying now, Buddha's even use these eternalist and nihilist systems. He enters into their gates of mental engagement, meaning he enters, he relates, in other words, right? He relates, he connects with he, it, she, Buddha. The Buddha mind can connect with. And then, with his pure comprehension of gnosis, he acts in accord with those beings and leads them to the perfect path. In other words, Buddha activities is so amazing, For beings who... So for some beings, if you appear as a Buddhist monk in front of them, they just walk away and say, no. So for some beings, Buddhas might have to appear as a K-pop star. K-pop, Korean pop, okay? Some beings, Buddha has to appear in this way and that way. It's what this is saying, So in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, it says, he brings beings to maturation, although not blind, like a blind man, although not crippled, like a cripple, although not a child, in the way of a child. The Buddha benefits beings in the garb of Indra and Brahma, and for some even in the garb of Mara. But the worldly ones are unable to understand this. Moreover, as taught extensively in the Lodro Dzogpa, according to all that is necessary and displaying whatever is needed, he teaches even the false views of the non-Buddhists and the like. When the trainee has become completely familiar with that, the mind that is then introduced to the path of the Buddha is led higher and higher. Such is the marvelous activity skilled in methods. This has some implications, real life implications for us, which is when we study, right, the different views. On the one hand, I feel it's really important to be clear what the Buddhist view is. And then here, Jiten Sumgun is clarifying for us what the Buddhist view is, right? So then in doing that, the faults of the other views are pointed out. So on that level, we need to be clear. What is clearly Buddhist view and what is not. Especially things get all mixed up, especially in the West, and then now even in Asia, people reading this, reading that. It's all mixed up, Eastern spirituality. One day yoga, another way, chanting kirtan, another day, doing lojong meditation, all mixed up. Sweat lodge, Sufi, everything. We like, buffets. Eat as much as you want, as little as you want at your pace, and taste everything. So it's important to know clear, be clear. But that should not translate to spiritual chauvinism. That then when you come in relation to people who have different views, different practices, different spiritual traditions, you're like, oh, I'm better. They're wrong. But instead, from this statement and the next couple of statements, you have to think differently and say, as long as whatever they believe is helping them to be better people, then Buddha activity is going on there. Such as the anecdote of Tibetans who have converted to Christianity, saying to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and say, "Oh, so sorry, Your Holiness, we have converted to Christianity, but we hope that, by becoming good Christians now, in future lifetimes, we can be good Buddhists." The Dalai Lama told this story and said, Tibetan people are so deep, the Dharma in their system, that even when they convert to Christianity, they are talking about Buddhist ideas, like many lifetimes. The Dalai Lama kind of laughed and said to them, I don't think your system talks about multiple lifetimes, And he said, but that is sort of, that is kind of the view that we should have. If we see other people, now, of course, again, on the real life scenario, you're like, what if somebody believes something that, clearly is causing harm, right? Do we still think, oh, that is, Buddha guiding them, Now, it's also not saying that. It's not saying that we have to, indiscriminately accept that anything and everything under the sun goes. It's also not saying that. But it is saying, don't be so harsh, don't be so quick to judge other people in their rights and their wrongs. It's always good to try to see, is there some good point even in what's going on that looks like it's negative, especially like spiritual. And then more so, like, how do we, if we genuinely want to help others kind of move away from confusion and go towards clarity, how should we accord with them? Which in another teaching of Jigten Sungwen, he says, right? He says, if you want to help other beings, then the first requirement is you know how to get along with them. It says, if you don't know how to get along with them, forget it. Then it says, in order to get along with sentient beings, you have to diminish your self-grasping. In other words, your self-importance, your agenda, you're this, you're that. You have to diminish that. If you don't do that, then it's all just talk. You cannot start off by, oh, I don't do this. Oh, no, I don't do that. Oh, I cannot drink. Oh, I cannot eat this. I cannot eat that. As like first thing. I cannot dress this way. I cannot, You cannot like start off like that. Now, it's also not saying like, again, you do whatever heck other people do just in order to get along. It's also not saying that. It's saying that on the inner level, really, we got to watch against judgment and pride and like my stuff is better than your stuff, my understanding is better than yours, all of that, you have to kind of back away from that kind of attitude. Yeah? And then find ways to get along. Find ways to get along. Yeah, so in a very practical way, I would recommend, like this is of course, an example that may or may not be perfect, if you have the ability, if you don't have the ability, of course, then don't, If you have the ability, right, Now you're with friends and they, you know, they're not like drunks or anything like that, but they like to have a good time and drink and all of that, right? Now yourself, you're thinking, or you're at the point, you know, yeah, I don't see I don't want myself, you know, to do that much anymore. You know, I used to hang out with them and do this, you know, but now I don't, you know. But then now you have to think, you know, like, but am I doing this as a judgment against them? Yeah. And so if you know, okay, no, but then I feel like if I don't spend time with them, then how are they going to see that there is a different way? And so you don't alienate them, in other words. So you might go with them, and you might still, even like, you know, it's too weird if you say, oh, just give me a Pepsi, right? Then you can start with, you know, whatever beer you normally order. But your mind now is clear about what is going on, right? So you sip, you know, but you don't get carried away by the old way of you socializing, drinking, being silly, you know. You have awareness. Then by not alienating people, by according with them in this skillful way, and there's no easy prescription to this. It's more like the attitude needs to change. Then you need to test it out. Likewise, you know, if you've made the choice, you know, to be kind in terms of your food choices, that's good, you know. But again, if there is this superiority, like, you know, oh, I don't do this, that. Again, you alienate. So you go, you continue to accept people's invitation to eat, you know. But you don't make a fuss, because then you alienate. Then when you actually go, there's always something you can find to eat. Without making a fuss, people will notice, oh, why you're not eating? You're like, oh, you know, I'm trying to minimize, you know. Rather than immediately start, you know how horrible this is? You know all the pain that you're causing? Da-da-da-da-da, you know. People just say, okay, it's crazy, you know. Then who are you helping? Nobody. If you cannot get along. So it's a fine line, you know, getting along, yeah, can turn into, you know, just going along with, you know, the craziness of samsara. So then we go back to basics, right? The basis of getting along is, on the one hand, always checking, you know, to what degree is self-grasping at work here? Needing to check. Then the other side is merit, accumulating merit. So merit is not accumulated in the abstract. Merit is accumulated in concrete terms. I mentioned this a few times, you know, like especially in Dharma communities, merit is not, you know, something accumulated in the abstract. You share things. Well, you bring things to your Dharma community. You have something nice that you enjoy. Now you're bringing and sharing with them. Now you're creating merit. That is not just merit on the one hand, but also the merit that is collective. Then you have good connections with people. Some of us, you know, truly, you know, it's like, you know, I don't even try, but somehow just being present, you know, alienates people. And we have to change, you know. We have to create merit. seeing merit as a means of connecting. Because if we cannot connect positively, beneficially with others, then no way we can help others, you know. Now the notes for statement 8, so page 651. So here Sobich provides the philosophical background that I think some of us don't have as much, and so we have a hard time going. So some of us, like, you know, like I said, until now you're like, wait, yeah, what Kyopa Rinpoche says, you know, that of course that's how it is. But that's mainly because you have not been exposed to, you know, actually in the Tibetan Buddhist context, what Kyopa Rinpoche says, you know, is controversial even now. Some will take exception. Many, not some, many will say, no, this is too far. This is like what Hindus talk about. We don't talk like this. And this is the camp within the Buddhist tradition that is much more comfortable with the language of negation rather than the language of affirmation. For many, Kyopa Rinpoche's statements are too strongly kind of yes. And they say, oh, that is an object of grasping. Yeah. So anyway, here, Sobish says, according to Dorje Sherab, people claim that the Buddha's mental engagement is cut off because they have abandoned the veil of knowledge. Okay, there are two veils. There are two obscurations, basically. Two types of veils, two types of obscurations. The obscuration with regards to the issue of self, and the obscuration with regards to objects of knowledge. When you abandon the first veil or the first class of obscurations, then you no longer have mistaken views about self. And that way you become free from the suffering of samsara. But you don't have yet what Buddhas have, which is all-knowingness. Where does all-knowingness come from? All-knowingness comes from abandoning or being done with the obscuration of objects of knowledge. Now here's where it gets, it can go in a direction that Kyopa Rinpoche thinks is extreme, which is, you know, again, it's just kind of a, you have to study a lot of Buddhist philosophy before you fully can appreciate this point. Because there are those then who says that necessarily an object of knowledge, meaning anything, right, that can be seen, smelled, tasted, and touched, right? They are necessarily part of confused mind, part of samsaric mind. And if the means to experience these things have been removed, you know, which is the veil has been removed, therefore these things don't even appear to Buddhas anymore. Therefore Buddhas don't have mental engagement. They say mental engagement is by definition a faulty type of mind. Because to be mentally engaged with anything is to involve some degree of confusion and therefore some degree of suffering. Of course, this degree can be so subtle that most of us don't even know. But nonetheless, even a speck of a dust degree of mental engagement and therefore a speck of a dust degree of suffering, if that still exists, then that is not a Buddha. Yeah, so Dorje Sherab says, you know, therefore there are people, meaning there are Buddhist people who say Buddha's mental engagement is cut off at the moment they become Buddhists. Therefore, some people call the Dharmakaya a great empty. Tongpa Chenpo, a great empty. That is empty of all virtue and non-virtue. Certainly you'll find these statements. At the state of Buddha, there is no more karma. Many Buddhist books talk like this. When you're Buddha, karma is not relevant anymore. You have gone beyond. Virtue and non-virtue, no more. Including, like in some of the Milarepa songs, you will find him singing like that. So it's not like these expressions don't exist. Not just Milarepa, even in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, lots of statements like this. What Kyopa is saying is like those statements needs to be understood correctly. That here is not saying that the state of Buddha is just this big empty, where there is no more virtue or non-virtue. It's not literally that. So they say that the emptiness mind is completely unrelated to the form bodies and all its qualities and activities. So for them, for these, they will say, only the Dharmakaya, which is emptiness, is real. All the Nirmanakayas, all the Sambhogakayas, they are just due to the confusion of beings, therefore these arise. It does not contain the thought. So they say Buddhas don't have this thought. Since the time for training others have come, I will display such a training activity. So here, they're saying that they think Buddhas don't have any more this thought. Now, the inexhaustible wheel of ornaments is merely an appearance of others. That is, of the trainees, and it arises from them as a mere apparition. So according, again, still continuing with this other view, they say that, so all the so-called Buddha qualities that beings perceive Buddhas to have, it's entirely due to the being's own situation. Buddhas don't have these things. Jigten Sumgön refutes this view, maintaining that the inexhaustible wheel of ornaments with its inconceivable means of training occurs due to the Buddha's previous vast aspirations. Now, due to Buddha's previous vast aspirations, which others will also agree, including the others who say Buddhas don't have qualities, both sides agree here. Now, since his inconceivable means of training are as various as are the thoughts of sentient beings, they will include even the worst views. Displaying anything that is needed with skillful means, the Buddha teaches even the false views of the non-Buddhists and the like, and when the trainee has become familiar with that, he is then led higher and higher until he enters the Buddhist path and finally attains awakening. Yeah. So here we want to say, Buddhist path, we don't mean, convert to Buddhism. Here but here, what we're saying is that our view becomes more and more aligned with Dharma. Now, I always say, there's Buddhism, there's Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma doesn't change, Buddhism has to change. We take refuge in Buddha Dharma, we don't take refuge in Buddhism. But without Buddhism, it's hard for Buddha Dharma to just kind of float around, you need a host, so to say. You need a container. Yeah, here when we say, oh, non-Buddhists, we might think, oh, Muslims, Christians. No, we're not talking about that. Yeah. Or shamans. We're not talking about that. Here, Buddhist or not Buddhist, it means, have we understood the Dharma and entered the way of the Dharma or not? Yeah. So here it's saying, Buddhists will even use what seems like not in accord with Dharma as ways to guide beings towards the Dharma. The Dorshema goes beyond this account by providing more detail about all the non-Buddhist teachings that a Buddha in disguise might teach in order to mature beings. He mentions that if the Buddha cannot turn a mind through teaching the tenets, meaning like the formal Buddhist teachings, he first helps with material things like food and clothing. Christian missionaries are very good at this. They give you food and material needs first. Buddhist missionaries go in and tell people, give us stuff. Oh, give offerings. That will increase your merit. After that, he engages in ordinary talk, provides quotations and reasoning, gradually leads the person to grow weary of samsara, guides him through nihilism. Because the weary of samsara and nihilism is quite similar, like all your efforts to improve samsara is pointless. So now you have to still fully guide this person. On the one hand, they are weary of samsara. On the other hand, you don't lead them into a dead end, nihilism. So you guide them through that. Awakens doubt in nihilism, guides through eternalism. So like bringing them into like believing in something beyond the material. The modern nihilism, I would say, is a materially based secular view. Like there's only one life. Anything that is, can be verifiable through the senses is true. Cannot be verified by the senses, not true. And when death comes, that's it. At best, your tombstone says, good person, live a good life. We will remember you. Finish. That is our modern nihilism. Says, no, need to guide them through. And then here, guide them through eternalism. Which here means make them believe that there's something more than this. So maybe you call it the universe. Which I personally go, ugh, yuck. But people like, because we don't want to use the word God anymore. We say, oh, the universe is amazing. So I have to be advised for myself, not to be so arrogant, oh, universe. Here it says, even Buddha will say, yes, the universe. So you guide them to that. Then to non-Buddhist deities, then you say, oh, Allah, Jesus, Krishna, yes. Allah is all love, Jesus is all love, Krishna is all love. You guide them through that. Then to asceticism, meaning now self-discipline. In this case, it doesn't mean self-torture. It means self-discipline. So first you say, oh yes, Tara can help you. It doesn't really matter. Even Buddhist deity sometimes is used in non-Buddhist ways, non-Dharma ways. Oh, Tara can help you. Tara will solve your problems. Achi will come to your rescue. But you have to keep guiding them to asceticism, meaning self-discipline. I need to. Until Buddha finally leads the trainee on the Buddhist path to the ultimate goal. As an example of the Buddha's ability to take up any position and thereby convert beings, lead them to awakening. So there's this story. When the Buddha was staying at Jetavana in Shravasti, 500 Gandharvas made musical offerings to him. Gandharvas are these spirit beings that enjoy playing music. They are like the elves, I suppose. They're beautiful light beings with music. When the Gandharva king Supriya heard the sound from afar, he challenged anyone to enter a contest with him. So there was a very proud Gandharva king, a little jealous that 500 Gandharvas are making beautiful music to offer to the Buddha. So he wants to pick a fight. He wants to show that he is the king of Gandharvas. And so his music is better. Then the Buddha transformed himself into a Gandharva and defeated Supriya by playing far more beautifully than the Gandharva king. In fact, he was playing a guitar, a lute, a string instrument that has no strings. So this is statement 8. Statement 9 is a further elaboration. It says the Buddha performs activities with anything existing within the objects of knowledge. So the last statement saying that even the extreme objects of knowledge like beliefs in eternalism and nihilism, the Buddha mind has ability to use those, even those normally said to be faulty views that should be abandoned by trainees. But the trainer, us the trainees, we need to abandon those views. Them, the trainers, are so amazing that they can even use those views temporarily to guide beings. That's the gist of last statement. This next statement here, 7-9, which we'll look at on Friday, is that more generally, any object of knowledge. So which really, the implications of that, even the most terrible idea, Buddhists know how to use that idea, that concept, to guide people along waking up. In the commentary on chapter statement 9, very interesting, it says, there's a statement in one of the sutras that says that whenever a Buddha exists in the world in a particular place, things that are contrary to Dharma have no ability to exist alongside that. Which sounds like, kind of like a little bit like God talk, God is so amazing, when God is present, nothing else can be. But here the point is that when a Buddha appears, right, and in his environment, wrong views cannot withstand the presence of this awakened mind. Then, of course, you need to explain, hey, what about all those people who came and debated the Buddha? And then also Buddhist text talks about the 6 wrong views and the 6 teachers that teach wrong view that is around the Buddha when the Buddha was alive. What do you do with that? According to this commentary, it says, and not just this commentary, the commentary tells us that in different sutras, it actually says, actually, these 6 wrong views and the teachers who teach them and the followers who follow them, according to this, it says, they are all planted by the Buddha. Now, I don't know if you want to or you need to take it so literally, but there's something interesting to say. You have to think of them as planted by the Buddha, meaning, what does that mean? It's an English expression. It means like the Buddha made them up to seemingly disagree with him. Why? In order to guide his disciples. To show, okay, this view, it's wrong in this way, and this way, and this way, and this way. Now, again, I say, ultimately, are they or are they not? I mean, what do I know? Right? And I don't think, I personally don't feel I need to go ultimately, oh, is it the Buddha made them up illusorily to teach us? Or no, they were really deluded. I think ultimately it doesn't matter. What matters here is adopting that view. That they are only there as a display of ultimately Buddha wisdom. For me, it makes us less, or it reminds us to be less rigid. We have to be very careful, because on the one hand, in our training, we are training to see more and more subtle levels of confusion. And therefore, on the one hand, we are becoming more and more critical. We have to be. We're becoming more and more critical in a good way, more and more discerning. Maybe that's a better word, right? But sometimes it's hard to tell, critical and discerning. So on the one hand, we're developing, we're sharpening the knife, so to say, So we need to balance up this sharpening of knife with this broad view that actually all the errors and the faults, they have their use. Buddhas with great compassion and completely clear of confusion can use those wrong views. And that even when teachers seem to teach the wrong view, right, they could be Buddhas, teaching what is necessary to guide beings. And so we become less rigid, less judgmental, less tight. So it's a balancing of acts. One hand, we have to see more and more clearly. On the other hand, we have to become less and less judgmental. Instead of, because the faults of less and less judgmental is fuzzy mind. Everything is fine. Everything is just good. If we do that, then we cannot choose, karmically skillful actions and karmically unskillful actions. And then we hope for suffering to end? No, suffering will not end. What is going on is you are just drugging yourself so that you don't feel so strongly the effects of suffering. That's not awakening. On the other hand, if you focus excessively or not skillfully on developing clarity, discernment, precision, you can become very difficult to be around. Everything that people do, you have an opinion about why it's wrong. And people can feel it, Nobody wants to be around you. Then how in the world are you going to be benefiting anyone? In another teaching of Jigten Sungmen that has been translated, it says, look at the example of Saraha. It says Saraha, Saraha was a great Mahasiddha, but by outer appearance he was a hunter. So Saraha was an arrow maker. Now we don't think much about it, We think arrow maker, oh yeah, he's an arrow maker. But the point about arrow maker is the equivalent of saying he's a maker of weapons. Why the heck do you need arrows? Except as a weapon. Whether a weapon to kill your enemies or a weapon to hunt your food. Saraha was a weapon maker. By common definition, wrong livelihood. But Saraha was a Mahasiddha. And so in one of the teachings there, Kyopa Rinpoche says, look at the example of Saraha. He says, he converted all the barbarians and all the heretics without changing. Without changing them. Very interesting statement, Without changing them, what does that mean? Further down that teaching it says, instead, he subdued them by subduing his own self-grasping. So when he subdued his own self-grasping, it made him more and more efficient, more and more skilled in guiding the hunters and the heretics that he lived among. So he did not say, hey, now I'm put on the Buddhist robe. Here, let me talk to you about nonviolence. Let me talk to you about... No, they would all run away from him and say, oh, it's such a terrible... It's like, I don't want to by this person, But Saraha lived among them. And slowly, slowly, he was able to guide them out of confusion. So Saraha did not set out by, how can I convert these people? How can I make them like me? See, that's often what we end up doing when we say we want to help others, we want to guide others. It's like, how can I make them like me? Saraha did not do that. It says Saraha worked on overcoming his self-grasping. Because when you genuinely work on overcoming self-grasping, you become attractive to others. You become agreeable to others. There are two ways of becoming agreeable to others. One is the wrong way, which is trying to please others. That's not what Kyoba Rinpoche is recommending. He says you have to get along with others, but not by manipulating others to like you. There are so many ways of manipulating others to like you, Always inviting them to dinner, always, giving them things. That is a burden too, If the motivation is not pure, it is a burden. Yeah, our parents do that to us, and we do that to them. Kind of manipulating each other. Just to get along. No, Kyoba Rinpoche is not recommending that, but Kyoba Rinpoche is saying you have to get along with others before you can help others. Then he says, well, then how do you get along with others? He says, give up self-grasping. Work on that. When you genuinely work on that, then you become agreeable to other people. Then other people can really enjoy being around you. Then they become receptive to what you have to say. So generally, I don't know if it is because of this, but I can tell you, generally, I don't like to talk to people about Dharma. I don't. Most people don't even know, unless they see me in the context of the Dharma Center, they have no idea what I do. Because I don't think that's the way, You genuinely become friends with them. Genuinely, not in a manipulative way. Then, if you really have some results from your training, it becomes attractive to them. Then they will ask you. Then they will become receptive. Then you can actually help. Otherwise, setting up a throne, putting up posters, I don't know if that helps. Okay, so that's it. If you are doing Dirgung Dhammakirti, I'll see you all tonight. And for some of you, it will be tomorrow morning when you wake up. 창주 샘철은 불지 마계 반함계 규지 개반ям 밤에 봐야 공내 공두 배월쇼 Okay, ta-ta.